Sorry about that, guys. I'm trying a new mic. I had no idea what just happened right there. All right, guys, if you can hear me, okay, if you can actually hear my mic, can someone say something? Give me a thumbs up, give me a like or whatever. I'm using a brand new mic. I literally just got it off of Amazon. It has a different input. I broke the other one because I dropped it. I stepped on it. So if you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up, all right? I'll hold on just a little bit, just so someone can tell me that they can hear me or not. You can hear me, great, awesome, all right. So actually it is in fact working. All right, how you doing, guys? Happy Monday. I am Dr. Nathan Thompson with Exemplify Health Center, your Wellness Way affiliate, right here in Yorkville, Illinois. Thanks for joining us tonight. Had an awesome day at the office. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you very much, guys, for replying that you guys can hear me okay. I appreciate that. So we're going to talk about something that maybe it might be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to give you my opinion, all right? So just remember, it's just my opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. It doesn't have to be gospel, but just remember this, is we grow when we share opinions and when we share ideas. When we become completely shut down and dogmatic is when we don't grow, and that can be a problem, especially when it comes to science. Remember this, anybody who says that the science is settled, they don't even understand science, because science is always a process of discovery. You ask questions, you then test, you make a hypothesis, you test your hypothesis, you look at the results, you go back, look at the results, do they match the hypothesis? And then you come up with a brand new question. So science is always in this evolution of always working on getting better and better and better in order to uncover truth. So I'm going to ask this question. We're wearing masks, so why is COVID-19 getting worse? Give me a thumbs up if you guys have actually thought that. Like, wait a second, we have more people than ever before that are wearing masks, yet why do we still have so many people who are actually getting infected? What's interesting is that you'll see people who say, well, the reason why COVID-19 is actually getting worse is because not enough people are wearing masks. And I pose a question, well, then why isn't flu getting worse? Why is the flu this year getting non-existent? And then the same people will say, well, it's because we're wearing masks. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? In one aspect, it's because we're not wearing masks enough. And then the same aspect is because we're actually wearing masks. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So guys, if you're seeing that infections are actually getting worse, let's ask the question, let's have a discussion, why are the infections getting worse? Now just remember, is that we're talking about positive tests. Now whether or not you believe in, that the tests are accurate, that's another discussion. I personally believe that, yes, you can do a PCR test and you can amplify it 42 times until finally you will see all of these different, DNA fragments that will say, yes, you have the existence of this DNA chain, and yes, you do have COVID-19, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have an infection from it. So let's ask this question. We're wearing masks. Why is COVID-19 getting worse, especially right now? And again, I'm going to give you my opinion, and I'm going to give you an opinion from how I think, from our Wellness Way perspective. It's a different perspective, but just remember this. If your perspective is not working out, then the definition of insanity is to keep the same perspective and keep doing what you are doing. Remember, healthcare today is not working out with the number of people who have autoimmunity, the number of people who have hormone issues, the number of people who have infertility, thyroid issues, cancer, heart disease. Remember, all of those things continue to get worse, which means that continue doing the same thing is going to produce the same result. We have to start coming from a different perspective. So let me give you my incredible opinion for today, all right? Now, one of the reasons why what we are doing right now, and if you're completely honest, you're going to know it's not working very well. So we have this whole hysteria, and I'm going to show you the different perspectives of what people have when it comes to a viral infection. We'll talk about a viral infection, but I understand that we were not heading down a right path many years ago, all right? So this actually comes from, let's look at it, the annual meeting of Infectious Disease Society of America. This was October 26, 2001, 19 years ago, all right? And they actually went out and they interviewed people about what they thought caused an illness and disease. And some of these answers are going to absolutely flabbergast you. This goes to show you that most people actually have no idea how the immune system works. When they asked these people, 60% said that colds and flu are caused by bacteria. Now, is that true or is that not true? Because remember this, a flu virus and a cold virus. This is actually caused by a virus, but 60% of them had no idea what actually colds and flu were actually caused by. Now, another 46% said cold and flu are caused by not wearing enough clothes. So if you went outside and you didn't bring your windbreaker or your members only jacket, I'm going back to the 1980s because it was a great decade, but if you're not wearing your members only jacket in the fall, then you're going to quote unquote catch a cold. So 46%, again, not true. 57% colds and flu are caused by cold weather. So the cold weather, the change in weather causes you to get a cold or a flu. Again, not true. And 37% said you're going to get colds and flu, and I even heard this, pneumonia, if you go outside and you have wet hair. So don't you dare exercise and then go outside by having a wet head or not having enough, because that is going to give you pneumonia. Now, I was actually taught this growing up, and I just believed it because that's what people told me, and the people before them told me. It's kind of like the whole Christmas ham story. Grandma, why are you cutting the ends of the Christmas ham? I don't know. Ask great grandma. Great grandma, why do you cut the ends off the Christmas ham? She says, because it didn't fit in my oven, and I had to cut the ends off in order to bake it. All right. We do so many things just because that's what we were taught, and for us to be able to trust the experts. Well, let me ask you a question. What if the experts are wrong? Because the experts actually said that at some point that we got sick because of the miasma, bad air theory on sickness and illness. So before they actually knew that there were viruses or there was bacteria, they thought it was just because of bad air. And so if you breathe cold air or you had a wet head, then you were going to catch pneumonia. Now, I'll tell you, you probably still do this, is that if you feel nauseous or if you feel sick, how many times does somebody tell you, you know what, you need to go outside and get some fresh air. So if you still feel like you're sick and you need to go outside and get fresh air, then that is part of the debunked miasma theory on sickness, illness, and disease. So after that whole miasma theory, and that kind of went out the tube, then they realized that, well, maybe sickness, illness, and disease is actually, infectious illness is actually caused by virus and bacteria. Now, they were onto something, but I'm going to show you really where it should actually go. So it's not just about viruses and bacteria. So you can see that literally 20 years ago, we were so wrong. Most people were so wrong when it came to what causes colds and what causes a flu or what causes some kind of viral infection. Okay, so here is what infection depends on. Okay, so here's what infection depends on. Number one, it depends on your viral or your bacterial load. And what I mean by this is this. There is a difference between if you have someone who is right next to you who does have an active infection, who breathes on you, who coughs on you, who sneezes on you. Yes, if they have an active infection, they are in fact going to give you a higher bacterial or a viral load. There's no question about that, okay? But the number two thing that's going to depend on the infection, the length of the infection, the severity of infection, is what we're not talking about, and this is called resistance of the host, okay? So think of this, if an infection was 100% dependent on the viral load, then think of this, everyone who got the viral load would actually potentially die. So you have to think about this. If they say that COVID-19 is actually deadly, then everyone would die for it, but why is there a 99.9x, you can, whatever that number might be, why do people heal from it, okay? And that has to go with number two, resistance of the host. And let me ask you a question. Over the last 7-8 months, what have we been talking about exclusively when it comes to this quote unquote pandemic? What have we been talking about? The only thing that you have heard from the experts, from the mainstream media, from everyone, from the politicians, is that you need to desperately decrease your exposure or your viral load. And if we can just do that, it's eventually going to go away. Now just remember this, you can take a glass of ocean water and you can do a PCR test and you will see an abundance of different viruses in it, all right? Viruses are all around us. You can't get rid of them. You can't run away from them. They're always going to be there. But the only thing that we have actually been talking about over the last 7 to 8 months is viral bacterial load. We have said zero, zilch, nothing about resistance to host. And my goodness, if you go on social media and you talk about it's not the virus, it's not the bacteria, it's the resistance, the ability of the host to be able to resist infection by having an actual strong immune system response. Man, you take it from both ends, because here's what people say. They get emotional because that's not what they learned. Remember, is that if you attack the person and you don't attack the argument, it means you've already lost. It means that now you cannot reason, you are emotional. And when you get emotional about something, you can throw reason out the door. But a lot of people get emotional about having this intelligent discussion, all right? So here's what we've actually done about decreasing the viral load. So here's what you can do. You can social distance. That way you stay away from people who have an active infection in order to decrease your viral load. Number two, what you can do is you can wear a mask. What's the idea behind masks? Well, I'm not going to get into it of whether a virus can actually go through the actual fabric of the mask. I'm not going to go into whether the actual mask has chemicals in it that you are breathing in all day. But you can wear a mask. The idea behind it is that it will catch your spit. So it will catch your breath, it will catch your spit, because that's how a virus travels. It travels on those things, and so the mask is actually stopping it. So another thing that you can do to decrease your viral load. You can also slather your hands with a lot of hand sanitizer. Okay, so you can put hand sanitizer all over your hands in order to try to, basically what it does is the chemicals will actually degrade the virus, the outer capsule of the virus, so that it can't do anything to infect you as well. Don't get me started about the amount of chemicals that are in hand sanitizer that are going obviously straight through your skin, because you can absorb things through your skin. It's not an impermeable barrier. You can also disinfect everything. So you could spend literally all day disinfecting all of your everything that you touch, your kitchen utensils, your groceries. You can keep doing all of that. You can do all of those things in order to try to decrease your viral load, but here's the question. We have already done that. We have done that more than in the history of the United States. Have we tried to socially distance, wear a mask, use hand sanitizer on everything, and try to disinfect everything? So we are desperately trying to lower viral load, yet for some reason, the amount of infections continue to get worse. So let me ask you a question. How is that working out? So obviously, it has to be something else that is dependent on why people are actually continue to get sick. Now you'll see on the very bottom, colloidal silver, okay? So colloidal silver will actually help lower viral load. And in fact, am I against disinfecting something? No, if I was in surgery, I would want them to disinfect it. If they're gonna cut me and put bacteria and things like that inside of my body, I would want it disinfected. Would I want them to wear a mask? Yes, if I was having surgery. But the thing is that when it comes to our everyday life, these things right here, it will not do the trick as far as you never getting sick. We've already been doing it, yet you still see that people are getting sick, all right? Now, what about colloidal silver? If I would actually recommend anything as far as decreasing viral load to patients, one of the things that I actually have recommended for some people to try to decrease their viral load once they have an infection is, in fact, colloidal silver, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, colloidal silver is not an end-all be-all. There are some people saying colloidal silver kills COVID. It's the cure for COVID. There is not one thing that's a cure for anything. I want you to know that. The apple cider vinegar is amazing. I recommend it to a lot of people, but it's not going to make you grow another arm. So when you look at sickness, illness, and disease, it's multifactorial. But colloidal silver has the ability to be able to degrade a membrane, whether it's around viral particles or whether it's around a bacteria, the membrane of the bacteria. And what it'll do is it will degrade it so that it cannot survive. So colloidal silver, without all of the side effects of things like antibiotics and things like that. So have I taken colloidal silver when I know that I have an active infection? Yes, I have. Do I take it every day? Nope, I don't need to. So the only thing that I recommend as far as trying to lower your viral load would be to do colloidal silver. And yes, you can wash your hands. Those are things that we should just do. But think of this. We've been social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizer, disinfecting everything, yet you see infections continue to go up. So my question to those people who are continue to advocate it is this. How is that working out? How is it working out? So you'll see right over here the scientific method, all right? So when people say that the science is settled, that's when you start to have a lot of problems, because science should always say this: let's ask questions, let's have a hypothesis, let's test the hypothesis, let's look at the results, and then let's form a new conclusion. Does my hypothesis that I initially had, does it line up with the actual results of my testing? And if it doesn't line up, then what you need to do is you need to look at the data and you need to come up with a new plan, but we're not doing that. In fact, we're doubling down and we're making it even worse. So the scientific method says, I'm going to observe, I'm going to come up with a question, I am going to come up with a hypothesis, then I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to come up with a conclusion that will lead to a brand new result. Now, we've already done that for the last 8 or 9 months, and here's what we said, is that we see infections getting worse. Should we mask? Let's try masking and social distancing and decreasing our viral load. Let's shut everything down. And then here's our conclusion, is that infections now are getting worse. And then the result says, well, maybe there's something else that contributes to your immune system response. But they say, nope, we're going to double down and we're going to do it even more. And it doesn't make sense. That's not science, okay? Guys, if you are vibing with me right now, please share this. Get them to understand, because what I'm going to talk to you about next is way more important, okay? It's way more important. It actually comes down to the strength of the host. The strength of the host, all right? Now, what you see there is you see one of the most ugly, bizarre animals. It's a possum, all right? So let's say that you are driving down and you hit a possum and you kill the possum, okay? So with that car, he had just unsustainable injuries and the possum dies, all right? Now, I want you to remember something, is that once that possum is dead, immediately a process of deterioration takes place. So it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do, is that possum is going to deteriorate and it's going to rot, okay? So think of this. As soon as he's dead, then what's actually going to break him down is bacteria. Now, you could slather that dead possum with hand sanitizer. You could rub a bunch of Lysol wipes all over him. You could drag him to stay away from everyone else and socially distance him. Heck, you could even put a mask on him, on this possum. Wait a second. You guys see that? He's not wearing his mask right. His nose is showing here. Let's push this up a little bit. Push it up. There we go. Hold on. There we go. So you could put a mask on that possum, and guess what? The possum, doesn't matter what you do, the possum is going to rot. And if you came back in 6 months, you would see a pile of bones, and that's it. And what broke that down? Bacteria, okay? Bacteria. So why did the same bacteria that was on the possum before he died, why then did it then affect him after he died? Even if he was wearing a cute little possum mask, all right? And here's the reason why, is that once that possum is dead, there is no longer resistance of the host. There's no longer resistance, meaning the immune system is not working anymore because they are dead. There's no resistance. There's no ability to be able to resist. So what does resistance of the host, what is it dependent on? It's dependent on how much exposure you get. It's dependent on stress levels, particularly cortisol. It's dependent on maybe some medications like immunosuppressive medications. And it's also dependent on what's known as nutritional sufficiency. Nutritional deficiency. This right here, these 4 things will determine your body's ability to be able to resist infection. Okay? Be able to resist infection. And this gets into the argument of saying 1,000 people are infected with COVID. 999 live and 1 dies. It's the same virus. And what is the difference? Let's say 250 of those people were sick for a month. Why was that? It was the same virus. Why is it that some people are asymptomatic? Why is it that a lot of people, they might have a fever for 1, 2, or 3 days? And then after that, they might not feel good for another 10 days or so. They're just feeling a little bit down, lethargic, body aches, lost the taste and smell. 14 days, they're doing good. So why is it that some people recover and some people actually die from it? And it comes to this, resistance of the host. If you know someone who is immunocompromised, I'm going to show you actually why. Because remember, we've been talking about this for the last 8 months about what you can do to improve your resistance as a host to a viral infection and to a bacterial infection. Yet what have we done about it other than just talk about it, be scared about it, and then just cower in fear about this virus that we don't know anything about? We know darn well what this virus is about, because a virus doesn't have a brain. A virus is not something that attacks you. A viral infection is a viral infection, and the symptoms you have from a viral infection are not the virus. It is your immune system response that is creating an inflammatory response to mount an immune system response. It is that you get a fever, it is not the virus. It's your body's response to the virus to help kill it off. So let's talk about this, exposure. Here's the first thing. How do you increase resistance to a bacteria, to a virus? Get as much exposure as possible, okay? The worst thing that you can do is sanitize everything. Why do you think that when kids go back to school, they all spend the first 2 weeks with a runny nose and they're kind of snotty and kind of sick? The reason why is because they are sharing as many viruses and bacteria with one another, and so they are getting a brand new exposure to new things. Of course they're going to have immune system response to it. But I want you to think of this. Why is exposure so important? Why are so many people getting sick now? Their immune system has not shaken hands with another person's immune system, with another person's microbiome over the last 8 to 9 months. There's been very little interaction, very little touching. There's nothing in which your viruses and bacteria are getting transmitted to other people in order for the immune system to learn. Listen, your immune system is no different than a muscle. That's it. If you do not use the muscle atrophies and the muscle becomes useless. So you have to have constant exposure. This is one of the reasons why we're so against having a mask, because now you're not exposing yourself to other people's different germs. Remember, if your immune system is strong, you can handle these things very easily. And this is why I try to get my kids to have exposure in so many different things, because I want their immune system to constantly be exercised in order for it to become strong. And remember, if you did nothing, if you had a baby and you never made the baby walk and you just said, you know what, let's just go ahead and let's have you ride in a stroller your whole life, you have a grown adult still riding in a stroller at 30 years of age, is because you never force them to grow and to be able to adapt. The immune system is the exact same thing. Here's the second thing is, so yes, you need exposure. Number 2 is you need to start controlling your cortisol levels. Guys, cortisol, what cortisol does is stress hormone. Cortisol will lower your immune system responses, okay? So when you're stressed, you're gonna have a lower immune system response. So what is going to raise cortisol? Any kind of physical trauma. Guys, you know that when you get adjusted, you are going to lower your stress response. Why do you think is that when I adjust someone, they're like, I don't know what you just did, but I'm sleeping better and I'm digesting better. What kind of witch doctor work are you doing here? And that's because when you get adjusted and you get the spine moving correctly, you take a tremendous stressor off the body and you will lower cortisol. So get adjusted. I get adjusted one time every single week. Like, I don't care if I'm busy or not, I get adjusted 1 time per week, all right? Number 2, how can you lower cortisol? Lower your mental stress. That's why I love California poppy. I love California poppy because if you have this fight or flight stress response like this because of mental stress, California poppy, if you take it, it will block the stress response actually at the pituitary gland or actually at the hypothalamus. And so it doesn't matter if you're stressed. California poppy says, you are not going to be stressed. I don't care what you do. And at least it helps give some time for you to be in a lower stress response. Number 3, make sure you're getting enough sleep. So make sure, in fact, coming up next week and the week after, we're actually going to be talking about sleep a little bit in one of our 12-day Christmas lives. And we're going to talk about sleep and why you need this much and what happens in the first half of sleep, what happens in the second half of sleep. So make sure you're getting, men, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Ladies, 8, 9, maybe even 10 hours of sleep. It's what you need. This is also true. So you can over-exercise yourself into having a lowered immune system response. Because if you have a lot of cortisol, because of all of these other stressors, and you can over-exercise and you can wreck your immune system response too. So this is with exercise. Dr. Thompson, how much exercise do you recommend? I say I recommend enough to increase your strength, your speed, your skill, your stamina, your accuracy. I recommend just enough. But I also recommend not so much that it lowers your immune system response, that it damages your fertility hormones, and that it does all of those other things. It should not do that. At that point, it becomes counterproductive. And then the last thing, especially heading into the holidays, guys, is watch your sugars, okay? Watch your sugars, please. You watch your sugars. Who are the people who are so beat down, their immune systems are so beat down, are the ones who are diabetics. So one, people have blood sugar out of control, high insulin levels, you're going to have high cortisol levels as well, and that will lower your immune system response. Being a type 2 diabetic absolutely decimates your blood sugar, decimates your immune system, okay? It's under control with my medication. No, it's not. It is symptomatically under control, but it doesn't mean it's going to improve your immune system response. And this is why if you are a type 2 diabetic or you're insulin resistant, this is why you are now a weakened host, especially to COVID-19. How about this? So who else, or what else can cause a weakened host? Well, think of this. Do you know people right now that are on immunosuppressive medication? What do I mean by that? Things that are intended to lower an immune system response. Here's what we have: autoimmunity. So autoimmunity will lower an immune system response. In fact, it's supposed to. So they will actually do things in order to knock out the immune system, and they tell you you are going to be much more prone to have some kind of infection that could potentially kill you. That's why they tell you got to get a TB a test for tuberculosis. They say you're on it long term, it can cause cancer, because remember, it's the immune system. What about people that are taking a lot of steroid type medications? Remember, steroids, cortisone. Cortisone will lower the immune system response. It's actually the conversion of cortisol into cortisone, which is massively anti-inflammatory. So if you're on steroid meds designed to decrease the immune system response, things like asthma medication, steroid meds for chronic pain, things like that, it's going to make you a lot more prone to having some kind of infection, and then also chemotherapy. So I actually talked to somebody today, I'm like, well, she's undergoing chemotherapy and she gets a blood test every single week. Well, why are they measuring her blood test? Why are they doing a CBC, a complete blood count? Because they know that when they do chemotherapy that they decimate the immune system, and they don't want to do it too much because now they're going to be a lot more prone to having some kind of infection. So immunosuppressive medications as well. And then this should say 4, how about nutritional sufficiency? Nutritional sufficiency. So how are you doing nutritionally in order to feed those immune system responses? Now, this is not an end-all, be-all to this, but if someone said, Dr. Nate, I haven't gotten an immune system panel, what would you recommend in order to help start the process of feeding my immune system test? Because remember this, we can look at an immune system panel and we can say this part of the immune system is weak, this part is weak, these responses are low, and we know how to actually start to feed them. But think of this, you can only get the host up to 100%. You can't get the host up to 900%. So if anybody tells you, is saying, well, if you can get enough vitamin D, it's going to increase your immune system by 400%. It can only get it up to 100, and that's it. Or if they say, hey, if you take this special herb or whatever, or this special supplement, it's designed to improve your immune system by 900%. You can't do that either. You can only get the immune system up to being sufficient, which guess what? Sufficiency is enough. Remember, there's a lot of people who don't have sufficiency of the immune system, yet 99.9x% of people are still surviving COVID-19. So how do you get nutritional sufficiency? The first thing that I would say is, if I've never tested anybody, is make sure that you are actually breaking down your food the way that it's supposed to so that you can in fact absorb nutrients. So do you need digestive enzymes? Do you need to increase your stomach acid? How's your bile acid production? Do you have a gallbladder? How are you breaking down fats, proteins, carbohydrates? Are you able to break those down so that you can actually absorb them in its smallest constituents? The other thing too to help with the immune system is I would say this: most people are actually mineral deficient by far. So zinc, medicinal mushrooms. So without looking at anybody's immune panel, I would say, hey, take zinc, take medicinal mushrooms, things like reishi and chaga mushrooms. I absolutely love them so much. Reishi, chaga mushrooms, okay? How about vitamin C and vitamin D? So vitamin C, you will see a rapid uptake of vitamin C and zinc when you are having an infection response. So that's why you can deplete zinc and you can deplete vitamin C pretty quickly when you are going in initial stages of infection. But then also probably my all-time favorite is actually vitamin D. So you guys getting enough vitamin D. So why are we getting so many people who are sick? Is because if you live in a northern climate, you have not gone out into the sun and get adequate vitamin D for the last 8 to 10 weeks, which means that your vitamin D levels have actually dropped in half. It takes about 10 to 12 weeks for them to drop in half if you've had no additional sources of vitamin D, which means if you're at 60 within 10 to 12 weeks, you are down to about 30, which is going to be very inadequate. And then the last thing is this, is guys, watch your sugars. If you want to help have a better immune system response, watch your sugars. Because remember this, is that when you have high blood sugar, it will compete with vitamin C for uptake at the level of your white blood cells, specifically neutrophils. So you will decrease an immune system response just by having things that are causing an insulin spike or a blood sugar spike inside of your body. And that's why a lot of times after Halloween, boy, people get sick because man, did they have a lot of added sugars as well, okay? So when you look at this right here, this is an immune system panel that we did on someone. She was really concerned about COVID-19. She said, I'm concerned. I want to see if I have an adequate response of my immune system. So we tested her. And I actually went over it with her and I said, if you see here, you actually see that you have a very strong immune system response. All of them are actually really strong. And I said, you really don't need to be on anything. I said, you might want to, during this time, make sure you're getting enough vitamin D. But other than that, your immune responses are actually really, really strong. So here's some things that you can take as far as helping to maintain a strong immune system response. But when you look at this, there's really not a whole lot that we needed to do, and her immune system was sufficient. So guess what? Recommending some kind of supplement to her wasn't going to make her immune system better. The reason why supplements, when people say they don't work, is because you took them and you didn't need them. All a supplement can do is bring you back to sufficiency, closer to 100%. So when you look at her, she felt really good. She says, I have a great immune system response. The strength of the host is strong. So remember this, what have we been doing? What have we been doing? Well, we've been doing the one thing. We're trying to decrease the overall viral load, but we haven't been able to run away from it. And so the second thing is the one that makes the most sense. Start working on strengthening the host, strengthening you to your environment so that you can withstand any environment. It doesn't matter if it's COVID-19, it doesn't matter if it's the flu, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter as long as you keep the host strong. And that's why during this time of year, you gotta work on keeping the host strong, all right? So guys, coming up, share this, guys, because we are now starting to track who is sharing or who is tagging their friends during our lives. So coming up, it's going to be, we'll be starting it. We'll have our first announcement December 1st, which is coming up a week from tomorrow. And then we'll be doing a live every day during the week for 12 days and giving something away. So we'll be giving over $2,000 of prizes. Some will be just for people who can be around the area. Some will be for those people who are watching online. I know that we have people from Wisconsin. We have people from Arizona. We have people from Oregon. We have people from everywhere that are watching right now. So we want to make sure that we say thanks to you. So you guys will be able to participate as well. And remember this, is that if you participate, everyone will be a winner. I will guarantee it. So everyone will be a winner. All right? Someone had asked the question, I'll answer this real quickly. Can you take astragalus every day? Yes, you can take astragalus. All right, so astragalus helps to feed the bone marrow. If you can feed the bone marrow, you will then feed your stem cells, which then differentiate into other white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets, and things like that. So do I take it every day? Absolutely, okay? But I also, there's crossover with the function of it, is that astragalus helps to actually protect your DNA, which actually makes it a very good antioxidant as well. So yes, I absolutely love astragalus. However, I said if you're just doing some basic things, that can be a great place to start, especially. So guys, I appreciate you guys sharing. I appreciate you joining me. I always love to see your comments. I always love to see the people who say hello. And make sure that you share this too. We'll be keeping track. And tag some people who need to know about, is it the host or is it actually about reducing your viral load? So I appreciate you guys. I'm on my way to do a family workout, if you can believe that. We're going to be doing it everybody in the family, we're doing a workout at our gym. So hopefully they decided not to bail on me, because I'm getting ready to do an awesome workout. All right, guys, be well. We will talk to you soon. Happy Thanksgiving if we don't join you. If I don't join before Thanksgiving, I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday. And I hope you guys are able to spend it with family. And remember, if you have a turkey, I've heard, over 12 pounds, they have a tracking device in it, and they're watching you. So we'll see. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Have a great night.